Hello everyone, this is Kevin, your entrepreneur, and let's discuss this story that I read about a couple who took an Uber ride and were shocked the next morning to find that it was almost $900. It was like $868, I believe, but for, let's just round it up and say it was $900 just to make it easier on everyone. This is a story that I really had to think about before I made a video about it, because I have made it very clear in the past, I do not sympathize with people when they pay for surge. Surge is a necessary evil. Without surge, drivers do not come up to bring your drunk butt home when you are too wasted to drive. Surge is there so that when you want to go out and have fun on 4th of July, you can do so and more than likely get a ride home afterwards. Surge is needed. Surge is good. I sound a lot like Gordon Gekko when I say that, but I mean it. It is good. But yet this story hit that a couple took an Uber and it was surging very high and they were shocked that it was $900. And there's actually like a couple news stories in this report that I think is worth commenting on, and that's why I'm going to comment on it. The first is that, again, surge is good, surge is necessary, and once in a while people got caught up in an especially bad surge and you feel a little sympathetic, but you know what? They agreed to the terms and they agreed to pay it. And so you can't feel too sorry for them. So that's story number one. But story number two is that with upfront pricing, how could they have possibly been surprised that it was $900? Well, here's why. Because when they called the Uber, they put in their destination and they were agreeing upfront to $214 for their Uber. And for the record, the surge was a whopping 8.6. Now, once they got to the destination, they asked the driver if they could add a few stops. And he said, sure, that would be no problem. And he asked them to input the addresses, which I'm going to take a moment and say this was very smart of him. This was very smart. When you're on a super high surge like that, and really in almost any situation, if someone says, can we make extra stops, always ask that they input the address from their end to show that it was them who added the additional changes to the address, not you, so that they can't go and make this dumb claim that you manipulated the ride just to artificially charge them more money. Now, I don't know where extra they went, but since they said a few stops, you could see how it could get up to $900. And when they contacted Uber in the morning to ask about that and said we had agreed to only $214, Uber rightfully pointed out that that was for the first trip. This was what the price was for like the first stop, and since you made additional stops, the fare stood. And that's story number two. Story number three, of course, well, I guess this is like nuanced story number three if you think about it. Uber has a multiple stop destination thing, and by putting in multiple addresses up front, they could have known right away how much this was going to cost in the long, long run. Once you ask the driver to make additional stops outside of the first stop, it's no longer this is what you're paying. It's a guessing game again. And unlike the way it was before upfront pricing, you have no idea what the surge even is, because the whole point of upfront pricing is to hide the surge from you so that you're not thinking about it. I mean, there's a little note that says the prices are higher because there's more demand, but compared to what? Unless you were doing this trip all the time, you really have no idea how much more you're spending than you usually would be. But once you add extra stops in with this upfront pricing, it covers up the surge so well, now it is officially a guessing game. And the fourth story is that after the news reported this and they went to the media complaining, and of course the media was going to complain about this because You know, it just sells papers, like Uber screwing the little guy. Yeah, they screwed someone who agreed to the terms of service, made additional stops on a price that they saw was super inflated, and if it's an 8.6 surge, they weren't going very far to get to $214. So they should have known that whatever the extra distance was, that was going to add up at some point. Never mind, the media will even call me for an interview to find out, you know, how Uber's really paltry rates outside of surge just cripples drivers on a practically daily basis. But anyway, I mean, we can beat that horse again. I'm cautiously optimistic the rates are going up. I'm cautiously optimistic. But after all this, Uber refunded the money minus the initial agreed upon $214, which, you know, I think that's a mistake. And it's a mistake because Uber's kind of become a pushover company. They basically, if someone complains, Uber refunds money. Uber has been around long enough that honestly the customer should not be pushing them around to the extent they do. If a customer makes one complaint against a driver, even if that driver has had a few years worth of experience and have countless 5-star reviews, that driver can be suspended really on the fly and never be reinstated. Lose a job just like that. One complaint. You know, if the passenger complains about surge, they make enough noise, Uber refunds the money. Now, I don't think they took the money away from the driver, which, you know, good thing they didn't, because then they would have had a whole nother problem. But I'm getting really... this sets a bad precedent. I mean, and they've done it before, and that's why people know that if they do this thing, if they make these complaints, if they make this noise, they will get their money back. But you know what? Passengers need to be held accountable for what they agree to. When you go on a plane, if the plane is delayed an hour or two, do you get your money back because the plane was delayed? No, because you agreed that, hey, the takeoff and arrival, it's subjective to change. And they have to do that because there's inclement weather, there's potential terrorist threats. There's a lot of things that can go wrong that basically would delay a flight. And if they guaranteed, hey, you're going to be on your flight, you're going to be up in the air on time, or your money back, then they'd just be refunding money all day. Basically, I think passengers are getting to the point where if they just simply don't want to pay something, they just complain about Uber, threaten never to use them again, and Uber refunds their money. Because they would rather keep that customer, even if it means giving that customer free rides that they are not entitled to, than lose them. That is a company that cannot last too long, because the problem is everyone's going to figure that trick out. Heck, I'm more or less revealing the weakness. If you want a free Uber ride, if you don't want to pay your surge, all you got to do is email Uber and complain about it. Not a great path to be on. But, of course, what do you folks think? Do you agree that the couple should have gotten their refund? Do you believe that they should not have gotten their refund? Do you think their gripes were legitimate? Can you believe this is still a story? People paying a lot of money for their Uber rides. Come on, folks. It's been 5 or 6 years, and I've made several videos on, you know, surge pricing. People should know what it is by now. They should know that they're going to get stung with them once in a while. Anyway, comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, consider becoming a Patreon member or buying some swag from the Great Media Universe store. If you want to try Uber Lyft and maybe potentially get one of these $900 trips, it's unlikely, but it does happen sometimes, you know, sign up with the promo code below, or my referral code actually, and you will get a little bonus after completing so many trips. And as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.